Welcome back to Black Men XCEL. I'm Senior VP Executive Editor-at-Large for Black Enterprise, Alfred Edmond Jr., and I've been waiting for this conversation for a long time. We have here the one and only Charlamagne Tha God, Lenard Larry McKelvey, Moncks Corner, South Carolina native, host of the new Comedy Central talk show, The God's Honest Truth with Charlamagne Tha God. Charlamagne started his journey as a world-renowned media personality when he worked as a radio intern while attending night school. Fast forward, he is hitting it on all platforms: book publishing, podcasting, television, of course, radio with the Radio Hall of Fame honored show, The Breakfast Club with Angela Yee and DJ Envy. Welcome, man, to Black Men XCEL. Thanks for joining us for this conversation.
Alfred, thank you for having me, man. It's a privilege and an honor.
You know, I've been waiting for this because I've been on the other side on the Breakfast Club where you asking me questions, you, Angela, and DJ Envy. So it's a real privilege to be able to have a conversation with you where I get to ask the questions. But talk to me about just your journey, man, from where you started to where you are now. You've grown tremendously. I've read your book, so I'm reasonably familiar with your story based in your own words. But talk to me about where you started and where you are now and what that means for you as a Black man today, still growing into himself, still growing, and being very, very honest, and honesty is really your trademark, about your journey.
Man, where I started is on a dirt road in Moncks Corner, South Carolina, a single wide trailer, really a single wide trailer in Charleston, because we used to live in Charleston before. My daddy hitched that trailer up to a truck and, took it down to Moncks Corner. But honestly, man, even when I sit here, and it'd be little things, like even right now, sitting here talking to you in Black Enterprise magazine, in my office for my TV show. And, as soon as I hear my name, when I hear my name, Lenard McKelvey, and I hear Moncks Corner, it just always takes me back to that place. And, I could never feel too full of myself coming from such humble beginnings, So all I ever feel is extreme gratitude. Like, I thank God for it all, and I give all praises due to God for it all. And I thank God that I had a praying grandmother and a praying mother, and just a village that poured into me, even when I wasn't the best version of myself. They always saw, the best in me and always encouraged me to be the best in me. Even my dad, is unorthodox as his discipline was, or unorthodox as his parenting was, him telling me things like, you're going to end up in jail, dead, or broke sitting under the tree if you don't change your life. Man, when I think about a lot of my folks in Moncks Corner, that's exactly what they're doing. A lot of them in jail, a lot of them dead. A lot of them, sitting under the tree. I don't know about their financial situation, but I'm just thankful that I transcended those circumstances.
I think I first met you maybe 6 or 7 years ago, and the thing that really garnered my respect right away is that your passion or your commitment to literally the undisputed truth. Of course, yes, you ask the questions that everybody wants to know, but everybody's afraid to ask when you interview other people. But you've been that unflinchingly about pursuing the truth and expressing the truth about yourself in ways that a lot of people in your position kind of don't want to do that. They want to not necessarily tell the truth to themselves, much less show it to the world. Talk to me about your whole approach to this idea, this value system that you seem to have. That's my words, not yours. For if we're going to talk, if we're going to call it what it is, let's call it what it is. I'm not going to do a revised version of the story. I'm going to tell you what I experienced. Talk to me about that, because I think this idea of committing to truth ties directly to our long-term well-being. And I do want to get into a little later about you're really becoming a real voice for mental wellness for Black people and Black men in particular. But talk to me about this whole undisputed truth way of life that you seem to have adopted long before it became part of your professional identity.
My dad, he would beat that in my head. I mean, two things my dad would say to me that still stick with me to this day. He would always say the fastest way between 2 points is a straight line. So that was just his way of always just saying, give it to people straight. And he always would say, when you lie, you're not lying to me, you're lying to yourself. And that always stuck with me. He would always say, you're not lying to me, you're lying to yourself. And I despise liars. I don't like to lie because I feel like you're playing with my reality. And I just feel like we deal with so much as people on this planet, men, women, Black men, whatever, everything, Black women, like we just deal with so much, man, that, we don't got time to be faking the fun with each other, right? Like we just don't have time. And like it just, even now, it bothers me, in the business, because like I'm sure you know this, Alfred, you'll be talking to somebody and somebody will be telling you about a business deal they did, you know what I mean? And they'll be exaggerating the numbers and they'll go around telling other Black people that. And then when these Black people get in these rooms, sometimes they talk themselves out of position or negotiate themselves out of position because they're negotiating something that's not even a realistic number. Like I hear it all the time, especially it was really like that in the book world. Like, oh, I got a $4 million book deal. I got a $5 million, but I'm like, come on, man.
Bro, you're telling my story. I mean, I've been a business journalist for 35 years. I could tell the real numbers from the fake numbers.
That's right.
The things that people are pitching, and you're like, really?
That's right.
Why? And the other thing I love about this idea of truth, even the hard truths, even the painful truths, even the truths that some people wish you wouldn't speak, is that, and this has been my own growth in terms of my own mental wellness. The minute I started committing to the idea that I'm just going to say what it really is, I'm going to try to find a way to say it that's not hurtful, but I'm just going to say what it really is. I'm not going to make up a story about why I can't meet with you. I'm going to say I'm unavailable to meet with you. You know what I'm saying? And those little lies, because they're lies, start justifying the bigger and bigger lies. And then, like you said, it's damaging to yourself. It's damaging to other people, but it's also damaging to yourself.
Yeah, I mean, but listen, even if I tell somebody I'm unable to meet with you, do I owe you an explanation?
Right.
Like, if I'm having a day, just having a day where like mentally I'm just not there, or I know I'm in a really bad mood and I don't want to project that on anyone else. Like I need my me time. Do I really owe you an explanation if I just be like, hey, I apologize, I'm just unable to meet with you at this present moment? Is there a why involved? You're not gonna ask me why. If we were supposed to do this, at 1:30, I'm not hitting up Alfred to be like, hey, why aren't you here, Alfred? If they said Alfred wasn't available, I might ask my assistant why, and she'd be like, oh, I don't know. He just said he had something else to do. Cool. So I don't even look at that as a lie. That's just me setting up my boundaries.
You're owning your time.
That's it.
Owning your time. So tell me about the show. I watched, about 3 or 4 episodes. It's very unique. Tell me about what it's like to work with Comedy Central, to work with your fellow South Carolina native, Steve Colbert, and tell me about what is it you hope to accomplish with your new talk show. And this is not obviously your first stint at television, but this one seems like you've really grown into something that's really going to be important.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that. This is my third talk show, and my first 2 were on MTV2, Charlamagne and Friends and Uncommon Sense. So for me, it was just God, preparing me for, the big leagues, and to me right now, this is the big leagues, and this show is probably the one vehicle I have other than books that is unapologetically me. You know, like Breakfast Club is me, DJ Envy, Angela Yee. My podcast, The Brilliant Idiots, that's me and Andrew Schultz. So it's a lot of, you know, it's different opinions, but it's still shared opinions, and it's, you know, shared energy, right? It's a collective. But when I'm writing my books, that's just all me. And this TV show, same thing. This is all me. That's why I call it The, T-H-A, as in Charlamagne Tha God's honest truth. And it's just me getting to talk about a lot of different things that I can dive into in depth that I probably wouldn't on Breakfast Club, or I wouldn't on my podcast, The Brilliant Idiots. You know, like the first episode, we break down what I call decrackification, you know, and I liken it to denazification in Germany. You know, that word cracker is an actual word that means racist and bigoted. You know, so I'm breaking down how we do have to decrackify America. And in the next episode, I break down how we got to decrackify the FBI, and, you know, asking the question, why is J. Edgar Hoover on the FBI building? Why is it named after him? The third episode was critical racist theory. You know, we were talking about that a while ago before it was a hot topic. You know, we had a mental health episode. You know, we had an episode about my thoughts on social media and how I think social media is the devil. You know, the last episode we did was about the cowardly donkeys, talking about how the cowardice of the Democrats is going to, you know, ultimately be the death of democracy for us. You know, last episode, we're talking about, you know, veterans and, you know, calling it American patriotism, and how America acts like it's such a patriotic country, but actually it's not. And we know it. And you don't have to look no further than the way it treats its veterans, you know, to see that. So for me, it's just literally things that I've always wanted to talk about, always wanted to speak on. And it's just unapologetically me. It's all me.
See, that's what I mean about the uniqueness of the show. Most evening talk shows, your late night talk shows, I mean, they're not designed to really tell the honest truth. Let's be honest. They're there to entertain, which is great. We get that. It's an entertainment venue, and it's, you know, let me help you just promote this movie and promote this book, and, you know, what are you doing now? And tell me some cute story that humanizes you to the masses, even though you're living a life that's literally the 1% of the 1%, and it has its place. So this is not me throwing shade, but it is rare, and maybe even more rare today than it ever has been, to have a show that says, no, yeah, this is entertainment in a way, but the foundation of the show, because it's the foundation of your approach to life, is we want to be real. And, you know, the more people say keeping it real, the less real people seem to be. Yeah. But you're one of the few people that I know that you do keep it real. And let me say this, and I want to ask you about this, because it also gets to the point of your where you see yourself and where you approach your life. Someone who didn't know you and only heard you on The Breakfast Club asking tough questions to celebrities, or might not know, as I know, you are one of the most like respectful, you know, reverential people I know. You know, I mean, the way you treat people, the way you strangers, at least in my experience. So talk to me about the I guess what I'm saying is, what do you say to people that say, why do you have to be the way you are? Why does it have to be this way? Why do you have to be so? Yeah, the truth is important, but why do you have to go there?
Well, you know, to be honest with you, I would tell them that they're probably right. Because my mom, you know, used to tell me and my dad for years that we don't know how to talk to people. And so for me, you know, I realized that early on in my career, I know I was being a caricature of myself. You know what I mean? There's the version of Lenard that if you know me and you know, been around me and kick it with me, then that might be like, damn, I expected something different. But then that Lenard created the character called Charlamagne when he was in night school and high school. And Charlamagne had been through a bunch of different iterations. Charlamagne wanted to be a rapper, you know, and then Charlamagne became a radio personality. And, you know, Charlamagne literally was created to kind of like protect Lenard, you know, and, you know, throughout the years, yeah, I'm always going to tell the truth about my life and how I see it. But there was definitely a point where you know, you can read about yourself in magazines or read about yourself on social media, and people say things like, oh, he's the hip hop Howard Stern, and, you know, he don't bite his tongue. And so I started leaning into it. I started calling myself the Prince of pissing people off, and the ruler of rubbing you the wrong way, and the architect of aggravation. So I really started leaning into it, and it became more of a caricature than anything. And honestly, man, that's when I was achieving so much success. And that's when I actually was the most depressed in my life, because you're talking about coming from being fired 4 times from radio, being back at home living with my mom at like 31, 32 years old. My daughter was like 1 or 2. My now wife is back living at home with her parents in Mouse Corner. Then, you know, me getting on the Breakfast Club and really being on some like survival of the fittest. Everybody can get it, because I'm not going back home. I'm not getting fired no more. I know New York radio. I know what New York radio likes. This is the Wendy Williams, you know, Miss Jones starring, but like that's what that was. I'm going guns a blazing. I'm giving it to him like that. And you know, around 2015, 2016, it just started to like eat at me. You know? Because I'm getting all of this success and making more money than I ever seen in my life, but I'm putting out an energy that's not even me. And what's crazy is all my, you know, I got people that have been around me for years. And like I had homegirls that would always say, I cannot wait until people get to see the real you. Like they would tell me that. Like people like my homegirl Kendra G, who does, you know, mornings on WGCI in Chicago, or my homegirl Debbie Brown, you know, who's one of the biggest, you know, mindfulness, wellness, you know, practitioners out here. Like they would tell me that all the time. My wife was getting on my ass. Like, who are you? Like, what is this stuff you doing? Like, why you talking to women like this in interviews, blah, blah, blah. So it was just like, man, I had to get it together. Plus I was just out here really living that radio star life. So I was, you know, as much as I didn't want to be like my father, and, you know, my father and mom got a divorce because of my father's infidelity. And as much as I didn't want to be like my father, I was becoming just like him. And, you know, I didn't want to do that to my family. I was out here 100 miles per hour, running these streets, you know, doing drugs, drinking alcohol, being with a bunch of different women. And it was ruining my personal life. And I was like in a real depressed, dark space. And that's actually what led me to therapy in 2016.
Well, one of the things you and I both have in common, I'm a big believer in therapy. I have a standing weekly appointment with my therapist. I don't always, we know standing, so if we can't do it, but it's there. And everything you just laid out is the one reason I was so glad that you agreed to join us for Black Men XCEL, because you are not just preaching it, you're practicing a certain degree of self-awareness. Again, with your trademark, total honesty with yourself. That really is a great role model for just growth and your ability to tell your story in an unflinching fashion. So, you know, for the rest of our, you know, conversation while we're together, I really want to get some insights from you about how important it is for us as Black men to, one, to be committed to our growth, two, to be able to be honest about who we used to be and how we can be better. And there's so many, you know, people, not just Black men, not just Black people, period, who are in your position that says, I feel miserable, but this is what success is all about. So I'm going to keep going down this road. And of course, we're surrounded by people saying it's working for you. So keep going down this road. And of course, down that road is substance abuse, it's suicide, it's a whole bunch of stuff. When we see somebody who's outwardly successful suddenly, you know, self-destruct, often it's because even though we know the success is killing us on the inside, the whole world is telling you, nah, man, keep doing it. You're balling out. Keep going down that road. So talk to me about what you would share to someone, maybe Lenard, if you met Lenard yourself with the experience you have now, what you could do that will help them understand the importance of the journey that you've taken with yourself, not with anybody else, not with your wife, not with your dad, with you, to get Lenard from where he was 10 years ago to where you are now. And you're still on the journey. I mean, I can see it with your latest book. You're not there. You're trying to get there.
That's right. I'm definitely still in the midst of my healing process. Because, you know, Alfred, because you go to therapy, man, you be peeling back layers and layers and layers. And the more you peel back, the more tender it gets, the more it hurts. Like healing absolutely positively hurts. And I'm at the point right now where like I'm a little unsure of myself because I'm not showing up as the character. Like when you showing up as the caricature, like I know I can get on this interview, say a few wild things, blah, and that'll be that. But when you're really showing up for you as yourself, I'm I'm just a lot more thoughtful and a lot more thoughtful of how I say things and how my words have impact. That's the other thing you realize too. Like I've been doing Breakfast Club for 11 years, and a lot of times I don't be out in the clubs like I used to and stuff. So, and I never really was out there like that. So I'll be going home. So you don't really know the impact you have on people until you're out. And the latest example, I think about somebody like Young Thug. Young Thug is 30 years old, I believe. So when I started Breakfast Club, he had to be like 19, 20. And him telling me about how my words hurt him because he was like, I was just a young kid fresh out the ghetto. And he's like, he was like, yo, you Charlamagne. And you don't necessarily, he was talking like you necessarily didn't like me. And I could see how that impacted him. And then on the flip side, when I do things like, I got my foundation, the Mental Wealth Alliance, when I do things like the Mental Wealth Expo, which we did, a couple of months ago on 1010 World Mental Health Day, and we had like 600 people in there, to listen to all of these different panels about, anxiety and depression and PTSD, but there's all of these people coming up to me, telling me how much me speaking on my journey has impacted them to go on their healing journey. And so you see the power of words, which I always knew, right? Malcolm X always said, the person who controls the media controls the minds of the masses. So I always knew that. Like you can go back to when I was doing radio in Columbia, South Carolina, it was always this battle being fought. I used to always say it was the perfect balance of ratchetness and righteousness, right? Mm-hmm. So my dad gave me the autobiography of Malcolm X to read. He gave me the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, Message to the Black Man to read. I was interviewing the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan in 2005 on Hot 103.9 in Columbia, South Carolina. So I always would try to have that balance, but there really is no balance. Like that negative will always outweigh the positive. If you're a self-aware person, if you're not a sociopath, if you have some, empathy, if you actually care about people and you're not ignoring, what your words are doing to people, or you're not ignoring the energy you put out. Because one thing about life, regardless of what opinion you may get back from people, the universe will respond to you in kind. So I didn't need nobody to tell me that I needed to go get some healing. I just knew I was messed up. And, I didn't want to end up like, people we know that have committed suicide. You know what I mean? Because I really thought, it's going to drive me crazy if I don't, go figure this out. And I thought I was going to therapy just to deal with my anxiety, just to deal with my bouts of depression. But I just had a whole lot of trauma that I needed to unpack, trauma from childhood, wanting something from my father that I never received. Love my dad, but and therapy taught me to not just love my dad, but give my dad grace, because he was just a man doing the best that he could. And he had his battles with substance abuse, and he had his own mental health issues. He didn't tell me until I started talking about my issues. November 2018, he told me, man, I've been on, I used to go to therapy 2 and 3 times a week. I was on 10 to 12 different medications throughout my life. I tried to kill myself all these years ago. Only reason I didn't was because of your older sister and because of you. And he was like, man, they still haven't figured out what's wrong with me. So I've been getting a check the past 15, 20 years. And I remember going to my mom and just being like, Mom, did you know Dad was going through all of this? And she was like, oh, I just thought he was playing crazy to get a check. So it's not like, right, all those resources aren't there and that conversation couldn't have been had. It's just that nobody was being honest to have them. So for me, when you talk about me having self-awareness, that's literally just what it is. I don't look in the mirror and just see what's right with me. I look in the mirror and see what's wrong with me, which is also another issue. Because I might be too hard on myself at times.
Yeah, to be honest but not judgmental with yourself and other people is a real skill, but it's a valuable one. To be honest but not to judge yourself and others for what you see.
That's right.
You know, in the time we have left, and I really do want to talk about what you see for us as Black men, us striving to be healthier, striving to be well, striving to be an asset to the collective, whether that's our communities, our families. I know you've done a lot of philanthropic stuff lately. I think you got an honorary doctorate at which
North Carolina
university?
State. Yeah, my mom's alma mater. That's my mom's alma mater.
Yeah, I mean, amazing. But what would be your outlook and your hope for us as Black men to continue to heal individually and collectively in an environment that's often hostile to our ambitions and hostile to our desire for wellness?
I think it's imperative. You know, I think it's the only way that we're going to survive. Like, I don't think we have a choice. Like, I really truthfully mean that. Like, it's not an option on whether or not you should heal. My man, Jay Barnett, man, he always says, just heal, bro. And that's the truth. Like, and you know, you can't push people, you know, to go out there and get some healing. But man, if I can run up on a brother and tell him a dope barber, if I can run up on a brother and tell him where to get some dope sneakers, you know what I mean? If I see a brother that's physically fit and I ask him what's his routine, you know, I should be able to share that same type of information when it comes to their mindfulness and their mental health. On my arm, on this shoulder right here, when I was like 17 years old, this is when tattoos were illegal in South Carolina. I had got Wolverine tattooed, Wolverine from the X-Men tattooed on my arm holding a microphone because I used to want to rap. And I'm a big comic book guy, but Wolverine is like my favorite superhero. And the reason I always loved Wolverine was because of his healing powers. Mm-hmm. He had a healing power. Like, people always think about Wolverine, they think about the claws.
Yeah, but his real mutant ability was the healing power.
Yeah.
The claws are artificial, the adamantium claws are artificially.
That's right. You know, put into him, but he could survive that because
that's why they were able to do it, because it was healing power.
Absolutely. So I think about my life now, and I remember whenever my daughters look at my tattoo, and they be like, "What is that?" And I'd be like, "Oh, nothing." Like, yeah, I want to get rid of all of them. But then I was thinking about it the other day. I was like, "Yo, I got Wolverine with a microphone in his hand. The microphone that I thought was supposed to be for rap was for this. It was for radio. It was for TV. It was for podcasts." And I always gravitated towards Wolverine because of his healing powers. Now at 43 years old, all I want to do is help myself heal. I'm on my healing journey, and I want to help other people heal. That's what I'm dedicating my life to. I'm dedicating my life to help other Black people, especially Black men, heal. Because man, when we heal, you know, we've been saying for years, you know, Black men are the foundation of the family. I will even dispute that. I don't even know if that's the case, just because I grew up with my mom being the foundation of our family.
Me too. I mean? Me too, bro.
And my grandma being the foundation of the larger family. So I can't, you know, it's hard. It's hard for me to even. That's a different conversation. But
right.
If we are supposed to be the foundations of our family as Black men, we got to show up as the best versions of ourselves for our families, for our wives, for our sisters, for our, you know, aunts, for our daughters, for our nieces. Like, once we do that, once we heal, man, we make that dynamic so much stronger. So that's where I'm at with it.
You know, Black Men XCEL is what we call a celebration of excellence in leadership, and our mission is to present Black men as a solution, not always a problem to be solved. And what you just said really kind of lays that out. Once we see ourselves as a solution and not a problem to be solved, so many other quote unquote problems affecting our community, you know, can be addressed, because we're, like you said, we're bringing our best to the equation. But it doesn't mean we're perfect, and that's not the point. And it doesn't mean whatever we did, we can pretend never happened. Right. So again, one of the things I really deeply respect about you is that while you are clearly a better man today than you were 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, you don't pretend that those other men didn't exist for you, and that there's no value in acknowledging that identity. And well, so I bring that up because I want you to talk to, because I think it's a point of hope for all of those who are in attendance at this event, that your past can be a foundation for feeling hopeful about who you are and where you're going, as opposed to something you try to forget and dismiss and hide and dodge or even pretend it never happened, which is also another form of lying, which we already talked about, the corrosive damage that can be. Where do you draw your hope from, I guess? What keeps you going when you can look back and find a lot of things you can condemn about yourself and about your life, yet you still strive for the better level, the higher ground? What is that, and how can we almost distill that so all of us can tap into that in our own lives?
I got to give all of that to the Nation of Islam, and I'm not a member of the Nation of Islam, but my father, gave me the autobiography of Malcolm X when I was a kid. So when I read that, you talking about you can't have Malcolm X without Malcolm Little. You can't have Malcolm X with that brother that they once called Satan. Literally, once called him Satan. So when I read that, it just showed me that growth is possible, and not only is growth possible, being that I was in the circumstances I was in at the time, I just thought that was the black way. I thought we born in the ghetto, born in the slums, we go through the BS, and then we come out these coals that become diamonds. And then after, learning about the Honorable Malcolm X, of course, hearing him talk about his teacher, that's when I read Message to the Black Man by the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. And that book, once again, shows you evolution, shows you growth. They would take the worst of us and make them the best. There's this other book I read, man, called From Niggas to Gods. And it's written by a brother named McKelvey. I don't know McKelvey, never seen him, don't know what he looked like. It was just a big book that was in the jails. And, I read that book, and those 3 books just really showed me that, like, growth and evolution is absolutely not just possible, but imperative to our survival. Because if you're not growing, you're dying, So that's what I would tell every, brother out there, every sister out there, like, just give yourself grace, man, and know that every version of you that you've ever been, you've been that version of yourself for a reason, and you can't shun that version of yourself. Like, those versions of yourself need healing too. Like, we trying to repair lineages, and when you're trying to repair lineages and break these generational traumas, you really got to go back and heal every version of yourself. Like, I'm dealing with the 6th grade version of myself in therapy. I'm dealing with the 8-year-old version of myself who was getting, molested by an older woman. Like, I'm dealing with the 20-year-old version of myself who I've been with my wife for 23 years. So it's like, I definitely wasn't always a great man to her. So it's plenty of times that I'll get into a depression just for something I said to her back in the day, or something I did to her back in the day. I'll be like, damn, but you got to give yourself grace. You know what I mean? And just understand that every new day, is an opportunity to just be better and do better.
Man, I think that's an amazing sentiment to end our conversation on. We got to give ourselves grace. That's so right. We can grow and move forward. And every person we've been is of value to the person we're growing to be. Listen, man, I deeply appreciate you joining us for Black Men XCEL. I wish you all success with everything that you're doing. And I, just thank you, bro. Thank you for joining us. God bless you. God bless your wife. God bless your family. And God bless all your endeavors, man.
Alfred, thank you, brother. Sending you that same love, light, and healing energy back, brother.